Hi guys, welcome to another tactical video. This one's going to be the second in my series on how to win at 40k. So it's part 2, and in this one I'm going to talk about the benefits of speed and range in your armies, and how they are required in many ways to help you win. So first off, I've already said it, but basically we've got 3 units here. What do they all have in common? Because we've got a Seraphim, which is jump infantry, speeder, and a rhino. Well, it's that they all have speed on their side. Why is speed so good? Basically, it gives you options. It sounds pretty straightforward, but yeah, that's the basic gist of it. Also, here we have Battle Sister with Heavy Bolter and a Space Marine with Las Cannon. They obviously don't have speed, but they do have range. And what's the benefit of range? It gives you options. So it's fairly obvious where I'm going here, but let's focus on speed for the time being, because there's a lot more to say about that. So what do I mean by it gives you options when it comes to speed? Basically what it sounds like. So one of the things that speed lets you do, for example, is it lets you overwhelm. So what this means is speed allows you to get several units into compromising places when fighting your opponent, because they're so fast they can move where they want, and you can use that to get right in your opponent's face and pressure him or her from several points of attack. So for example, if he has a key infantry unit and he needs it to hold, for example, Tau Pathfinders, that is a key infantry unit from your opponent's perspective. He doesn't want them to die. Okay, and then you've got loads of land speeders going forward, for example, with flamers, double heavy flamers and stuff. That's a lot that he needs to kill, because even one of them survives and those Pathfinders are gone. Okay, so that's one example there. Again, you could say the same thing if you had bikes with melter guns, or and he needs to protect a tank. If you had a squad in a drop pod with grav guns, that kind of thing, or plasma guns, and you're killing something like a monstrous creature, if it's Tyranids for example, dropping in first turn and killing it really quickly, that's speed you've got there, and you are basically overwhelming your opponent because the pressure's on. They need to be able to survive that round, and there's a lot coming at them, and people make mistakes when they're under pressure, so it lets you overwhelm them. So that's just the first point. Okay, kind of linked to that is it lets you strike harder, and it's kind of what I said, if you are overwhelming someone that quickly, you can get several high-powered units into better places. So, for example, going back to the speeder with its flamers, if you have a cluster of people, it lets you position the flamers perfectly to hit as many as possible, or hit them from more compromising angles. For example, say she is a regular troop, and for some reason they have joined forces and they're part of the same unit and blah blah blah. Say she's regular, like Bolter Marine. The Las Cannon is the best part of the squad, so you can position the speeder so it's hitting the Las Cannon guy first, so he's going to die. That's what I mean. It's neutering the effectiveness of the squad a lot quicker, because the speed has allowed you to get into that position. So it basically lets you strike harder than you would be able to otherwise. And that's kind of what I mean as well. So not just more harder, but more precisely. For that, for example, if you had something that's anti-tank, you could get into the rear arc of the Rhino, for example, because the speed would allow you to get there, hit it harder, you've got more chance of killing it. And that's something that speed grants you that nothing else can. Another thing it gives you is that it gives you the option to run away easier. and not just things like jump infantry, which flee from combat faster, which can be a benefit and a curse. It depends on your situation, but just in general, like for example, using the Seraphim, if a scary unit somehow appears and is trying to kill her, at least with her speed she can constantly move away, and unless they are fast themselves, they will be hard pushed to catch her, and she can go do something else. Or you could lead them on a merry chase around the battlefield, and if they're that scary and there's a lot of points in them, etc., sometimes that's a better benefit all of its own. So just having that option to run away is always good. Now another thing is, like, as you can see, I've got my objective markers out. Speed lets you take objectives. Now I know you can like sit units on objectives, like for example I'll put the last cannon guy over there, sit on that objective, you know, and you can shoot there all day. Same with her, with the heavy bolter. But what speed lets you do is basically you can choose your objectives. So for example, if your opponent had someone on that, well, if you were here and your opponent seems to be going for this objective, then you're equidistant, so you could essentially just go for that objective instead and claim that one, or like sweep in a contest, or even better if you have two units, you could put someone over there, contest that one, and then suddenly you win. So basically having that option to take those objectives really helps, and as you can see you've got the tactical objectives cards here. It especially helps for Maelstrom missions, because of course you don't know which objective number you're going to get until a turn, if any. So having that speed there will really help you in getting to those objectives. And not just the bog standard objectives either, but you can score victory points through speed just from things like getting line breaker, and you know, stuff like that, like the tactical objectives where you have to get into your opponent's deployment zone, that kind of thing. Having the speed there really helps. So it'll help you win like directly in getting you victory points. Another thing that speed really helps with is it lets you compensate easier for issues that you've had that have arisen, in other words. So say you have a fast unit in the middle of the board and something horrible has gone on over the other side, and your units get wiped out, and for some reason you need to hold it. The speed will let you get over there and lend some support. So it's actually pretty useful in basically shoring up things that go wrong. So, you know, when something does go horribly wrong, the speed will let you get there. So it's really nice to have that option. And again, similar to that, it helps you switch tactics easy. So if you are struggling, again, in a particular area, and maybe not just losing units, maybe just something is going wrong, or maybe it's a positive thing and the tactical objectives have deemed that you must go somewhere else or do something else, that kind of thing. You need to switch to a different objective, that kind of thing. Basically speed will let you do that, because again you have the range of movement to get there. And the last thing is basically kind of like the start with the overwhelming. It helps you threaten more things. So what this kind of means is her moving forward in this situation, if she was here, and say these are 3 different units, she's now essentially threatening each of these units because she's so fast she could get in to attack any of them. So she could attack them, she could attack that, she could attack that. That's her options. Okay? So speed basically allows you that. It gives you options. Now, the next thing is range. And while it's not quite as useful as speed, it's still pretty useful. So, as I said again, range gives you options. it's a little more restrictive in that it requires really good line of sight. So that is on you, basically, to look at the terrain you're playing with. Some kind of place of elevation is good. Make sure you know how far out your unit can actually touch in terms of its range, and then basically arrange it accordingly. Like, make sure they can see. And one of the tricks really is to kind of predict where your opponent's going to go and create lanes of fire. So, for example, with either of these, if you put them in a position like pretty high up where they're protected in cover maybe, and there's like a huge lane of fire just going down with no terrain in the way towards your opponent's position, and you can see like tanks and that kind of thing, then putting the las cannon in that ruin to see there is a good option, because you know he's got those lanes of fire and won't get cover from you. But likewise, you can kind of use this to predict things. Like, this is getting a little bit off topic, but it's kind of related. So, for example, if they have a rhino with a dozer blade, odds are that they're going to either start in cover or just like drive straight through cover. So you can kind of predict that and like plan an ambush with your range by looking for the kind of ways they're going to head and creating your own lanes of fire. Although that's a lot more advanced. Like, conversely, if they are like Eldar Guardians or something, or Orcs or something, they're going to hug cover because that's their only protection as they move forward. So you can predict it that way. Whereas if it's like Space Marines or Terminators or something that has a good invulnerable save, or just like is, you know, numerous and fairly sturdy, then they may tend to avoid the terrain. Like, for example, a Land Raider. A Land Raider will avoid terrain because it doesn't want to kill itself, like, by getting immobilized. So it'll just go around it, and they predict the fire lanes and set up an ambush. So, it requires good line of sight in that way. But what it does let you do is, just like speed, it lets you overwhelm. Because you are threatening several things at the same time. So, because you have the range, you have an option of attacking a lot more different units from one unit. So your opponent has to be wary of that, and again, may move his own units accordingly. And if he doesn't, then, you know, seize the opportunity. So yeah, it's pretty useful in that sense. It lets you overwhelm because you can combine your firepower, like your support firepower, with your rest of your army, which is your fast units, for example. It doubles the effect, essentially. So that's really nice, and of course it lets you strike harder on the turn when this all happens, when it all kicks off, because they'll be there, as I say, doing their thing. They can come in and help them as well. So, basically, speed and range both give you options in what you do, but it's kind of funny how certain units in the game, especially Eldar units, do actually have both at the same time with them, but you don't actually need both on the same unit. Generally speaking, it's better to just make do with what they are, and even like, for instance, here I've got like some dedicated fast attack things and stuff. You don't have to go that way. I mean, with the Rhino, with dedicated transports, you can make even the most mundane units pretty fast. Now, whether it's worth making them fast is your call. Like, I would say, if a unit does not excel particularly at range, then fast is a good option for it. If for some reason there's no convenient way of doing that, then, well, I think a better way of explaining this would be to say, if a unit does not lend itself well to range at all, you're better off building it for speed. Even if it's not quite as fast as other parts of your army, building it for speed will give you a lot more benefits. So just giving them a simple Rhino gives you a lot more options, because in a Rhino, that's 18 inches of movement in your first turn. You know, so and of course there's other benefits from a Rhino, but moving any squad 18 inches is really useful for what you can do. So again, it basically just gives you options, as I say, and having these options is key to winning. So hopefully this video has been useful. If you have any questions or I've failed to explain it at all, then please let me know. It's kind of hard to get across some of these. Well, I don't think I'm explaining myself that well, but hopefully it makes sense. And if you liked it, remember to click like. Please feel free to comment. Of course, subscribe if you want to see more videos, and I'll be back soon. Thanks for watching.